It was a loss for Pramila ma'am because if she hadn't removed her name from my PPT slide, her name too would have been associated with my victory. But unfortunately for her, that did not happen. Later, I heard from my classmate, Sharda, that she had also been assigned to Pramila ma'am as her mentor. Sharda told me that Pramila ma'am had personally guided her, offering to help even with the slightest doubts at every step or slide she had issues with. It seemed like Pramila ma'am was trying to shape stronger presenters, possibility to prove a point to me. But unfortunately for her, none of her assigned students could outperform me. In fact, they didn't even do well at all. Renuka ma'am and another teacher, let's call her Shweta ma'am, seemed to have some unspoken rivalry. There was office politics going on between them. It was subtle but noticeable. From what I've heard from seniors and observed in the way they interacted, there was clear hints of tension. Of course, they would never admit it openly, but it was evident that some form of competition or conflict existed between them, perhaps even more than just rivalry. Because of this dynamic, Shweta ma'am started helping me out with elective B. I remember that since I hadn't chosen elective A, Renuka ma'am seemed to take it personally. However, the truth was that I didn't need any help from Shweta ma'am at all. I was already well prepared for it. I was familiar with elective B, had prior experience with the subject, and even had a practical record to refer to. So I was completely covered. Still, Shweta ma'am would step in and kept trying to help me. I suspect she was doing it intentionally to make Renuka ma'am uncomfortable. And it worked. Renuka ma'am didn't take it professionally at all. In fact, I recall an incident in the library when Renuka ma'am said, "Your teacher is calling you." I was confused for a moment, wondering whom she was referring to. As for elective B, I had no teacher assigned to me. Then I realized she meant Shweta ma'am. It was clear that Renuka ma'am was bothered by this situation, and it only reinforced the idea that there was more going on beneath the surface between them. It seems like I was caught in the middle of their rivalry, whether it was just professional competition or something deeper. It seemed like neither of them was genuinely trying to support me. They were more focused on their own egos and power struggle. Shweta ma'am helping me might not have been about my benefit, but rather about undermining Renuka ma'am. And Renuka ma'am taking offense at my elective choice and calling Shweta ma'am your teacher definitely suggests she was personally bothered by the situation. The whole thing feels like office politics where I was just a pawn in their game. At least, that was what it felt like. Looking back, I feel bad about it. It's frustrating to realize that the help I received wasn't out of genuine concern, but a means for them to one-up each other. It also explains why Renuka ma'am's attitude towards me changed. She might have seen me as siding with Shweta ma'am even if I wasn't trying to. For me, both of them were teachers who had taught me, and I respected that. That was all there was to it. I didn't have any favorites. To make my post-graduation experience even worse, I remember being accused for an elective A book missing from the library. Here's what happened. Before choosing elective B, I had borrowed books from the library, one for elective A and one for elective B, because at the time I hadn't decided which elective I would choose and I just wanted to stay ahead. So I studied both the subjects. Eventually, When I decided to go with elective B, I returned the elective A book. But instead of returning it directly to the library, I gave it to a friend. Let's call her Riri. We were in the library when that happened. The librarian was at fault here for not saying anything about this, and so was Riri for agreeing with me for not writing her name in the library card and signing it. Back then, the librarian was in good terms with me, so that's probably the reason why she didn't say anything, allowing Riri to borrow the book in my name. And I obviously don't blame her for not remembering this, because many people would come in and go from the library. So it's kind of hard to keep account of what's happening, what's not, because a lot of things would happen in the library. My only mistake was that I was an overly helpful idiot. Now Riri is a responsible person, but she must have forgotten to return the book. Back then, she was in the middle of big life changes. She was getting married. So with all the shifting and chaos, she probably assumed she had returned it. But I clearly remember that she hadn't. And Riri was not a regular student, because whenever she would come to college, she would message me. We would meet, mostly in the library. But that never happened. At least not in front of me, that she returned the book. I don't remember it. Now, I don't want to blame Riri entirely, because I don't actually know where the book ended up. However, the last time I saw it, it was with her. And to make matters worse, there were only 5 to 6 of these elective A books available at that time in the library. When I found out about the book being missing, I searched it 5 to 6 times in my house, even though I was confident that I gave it to Riri. I remember the last time when I went to the college to get the librarian's signature for some paperwork, she was making a face. Expressions that made it clear that she wasn't happy to see me. I wondered if it was because of the book issue. So I asked her, "Ma'am, did you find the missing book?" She responded, "No, we didn't find your book." The way she said "your book" stood out, as if it was only my responsibility, my fault. Maybe they thought I was irresponsible or that I did it on purpose. Anyways, I was not fined because it was the librarian's fault to begin with. When the librarian told me the book was still missing, I told her that I had returned it. It was either with Riri or Sona. And she replied, "No, Riri has returned all her books." I told her, "So had I. I had returned all my books too." But of course, she didn't see that. And the librarian also added, to defend Riri, she said, "A few months ago, Riri was talking about ending her life because of her in-laws and how Adi comforted her." To which I replied that Riri first told me about that situation. I was the first person to comfort and console her. I then told Adi, and then he too comforted her as well. In fact, I was the one who told her to go talk with the teachers. It's important to talk with elders so that she can get out of that mental state with their help. There were some juniors standing there as well. One was very rude. That's when I realized my reputation there had been ruined. And honestly, it doesn't even matter anymore. It felt unfair. But by then, I had stopped expecting fairness from that place. Maybe my reputation mattered more than the truth. Maybe I was just an easy target. I have nothing to do with that institution now, and I'm so done with that place that I don't even want to see it again. This experience had been burdening me for years. I've been holding on to it for so long. Now that I'm telling my side of the story and letting it out, I feel free. I know that I did not steal that book. I know that I returned it. I know that the book is not with me. I know that I never intended any disrespect towards any teacher. And I know exactly how I felt when I was mistreated by all of these people. But I do not hold any grudge against anyone. Now that I have shared it, I am releasing it and closing this chapter once and for all. Thank you for listening.